Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Progress America Unfiltered. It's me, Tyler, and I'm here today with Linda and Craig to give you some hot topics that, popped up over the weekend as we kick off another week. We're going to talk about United Auto Workers, we're going to talk about AI, and we're going to talk about everybody's least favorite Vice President, Mike Pence. If you guys don't mind, I think I'll kick things off with some updates on UAW. The United Auto Workers Union has just reached a historic deal after a historic stand-up strike series that happened in Detroit. This was done in order to, advocate for better pay and better benefits for workers across the big three automakers, which is Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors. And as of a few hours ago, General Motors reached a tentative agreement. And so they are the third and final holdout of the big three to give the United Auto Workers a win. This is just the latest development in a series of crisp labor autumn fight for workers' rights that we're really excited to see. Really quickly, I'll get into what they won. Some of the things they won include, 20% pay increase, including pay raises that are structured year to year. So every time an employee continues to work, they get an automatic guaranteed raise, cost of living adjustments, benefits, electric batteries being made in the United States. They reopened facilities that were previously closed, which, created like 12,000 more jobs. So all in all, this is a huge, huge win for not just auto workers, but for the labor movement in general. So, Craig, I'll go to you first. Do you have any thoughts on what this means?
No, it's a huge deal because, the big three automakers, outside of that facetious remark, the big three automakers were making all their battery plants not in union states so they could avoid unionizing and increasing union membership. And so the fact that they got these raises and the fact they got promises that battery plants will be built in union-friendly states is a huge win for UAW. It's also a particularly good win for President Biden because he supported them and then they won, and now he gets to not have to think about this for another 4 years.
Yeah, and I think I'm really excited to see what comes next here because in reading about this, one thing I saw is that UAW's president is already talking about building on this win by organizing drives, at some of the other companies that are currently non-unionized, like Tesla, like some of the foreign auto workers, auto makers that have plants in the United States. And so I think this really is just the beginning, and we could have a lot of momentum here for good paying manufacturing jobs in America.
It always surprised me because Tesla's headquartered in California. I'm surprised they're not unionized given the rather union-friendly environment there. I wonder how they got around to that. It's probably some...
Another reason to blame Elon Musk, I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah, probably bribe the right people.
Exactly. But, UAW and auto workers in general have always been at the forefront of labor rights. So it's amazing to see them push for these wins. And I think we're going to see it trickle down. And they're already talking about plans for, 2028 when these contracts expire and how they're going to, bring in even more major auto manufacturers so they can help even more workers and inspire people across sectors to unionize and fight for fair workplaces. So it's very exciting. Some good news to start this week's show. Let's keep the good news rolling and talk about former Vice President Mike Pence, who has officially dropped out of the race to become the Republican presidential nominee, to which we all said so. Linda, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, bye-bye, Mike. I just think it's really something. This guy, basically debased himself for 4 years, did whatever Donald Trump wanted, just held his nose, right? And until finally the one line that he wouldn't cross was overturning the election, for which Trump almost got him killed. And then what did he get for all of that? Just, a few short months of a losing presidential campaign. Would be kind of sad if he was a nicer person, but instead it's mostly just pretty funny. He really was low on donors, low on name recognition. I guess a little bit of credit to him for at least realizing that it's probably better to fold now than to continue with this. It will be mildly interesting to see if he endorses someone besides Donald Trump, but I think I would predict that he'll actually just end up endorsing Trump again, even after Trump tried to have him killed, because that's where the Republican Party is right now, and he's probably got his eye on 2028.
It was a good week for Christian fascists to lose, even though he is the most self-aware Christian fascist, because like he realizes that the inability to get 20 people to a local Hallmark store in Iowa was probably a sign he should get out. And the fact that he was in like six-figure debt and he was about to go into more debt that he had on cash on hand. Good for him for never accomplishing any of his dreams, is all I have about to say to him.
Couldn't have said that better, honestly. And yeah, I mean, Linda, you're wearing, partially a Halloween costume right now. And I think we were joking before the show, there's just nothing scarier than what's going on in the Republican Party right now. I won't be dusting off a Mike Pence costume anytime soon, but I'm glad to see him out of the race. It will be interesting to see if he endorses Trump, especially after Trump led chants of hang Mike Pence following his failure to overturn the 2020 election. So we'll see how much scarier things can get. There's still a bunch of candidates in the race. We haven't bothered to name all of them. Let's just wait till there's less. But that's one down. Another one bites the dust. Somebody play the Sarah McLachlan in the Arms of an Angel song.
My favorite thing about this outfit is Mike Pence probably thinks it's satanic.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything's satanic.
Well, he wouldn't come close to you because you're a woman, not because it's
You're a woman who went to dinner with another man that wasn't your husband at one point.
Yeah.
I've been known to.
We went to dinner together. Scandalous.
So our last topic of today's show is something that I know very little about, but thankfully we have somebody who knows way too much. Craig is here to tell us something about AI. What's going on now?
The White House, sort of surprisingly, sort of not, since it was leaked over the weekend, came out with an executive order on AI. And what's interesting and impactful about it is that it is an overview. It basically, they have gotten commitments from the top 7 AI companies to essentially abide by a set of rules in which their models will have to pass what are called red status tests. And this is essentially tests to attempt to eliminate discrimination, the hallucinations, the ability to sort of lie and create mispropaganda, but also the test against, in some ways, in the future, I believe this was written to like avoid what general AI could do, which is become self-aware, replicate, and then destroy humanity. And so it's a good series. It shows a good, strong interest by AI company makers. Like, clearly they understand that the potential power of this technology to hurt a lot of people, especially since we've seen the rise of AI in the medical field to very mixed results, especially if you've asked a nurse lately. We've seen very suspect uses of AI in terms of like housing, pricing, interest rates, credit, the whole 9 yards, every aspect of life essentially. And so it's a movement in a space that has long needed it, and it's more movement on a particular industry than we've ever seen them do for, like, let's say, social media, which also has huge impacts and harm capabilities. Some notes there is that this is a federal agency thing. It doesn't have the power of law. It's only an executive order, and it stops nobody who's a medium-sized AI company from doing bad stuff. And that's the thing that continues to worry me without a national responsibility law, is that we can pretend that we're going to watermark. And that's the other thing. They added watermarks, which I don't really believe in, because OpenAI has already failed and shut down the program that they designed to detect OpenAI generated content, because they can, because it's so good. So the watermarking thing seems like a little hilarious. I think it's happening because the press really pushed it and really glommed onto it as an idea. And it also doesn't stop small to medium-sized AI companies from basically creating bespoke models that don't fall underneath the kind of guidelines of these companies. And because it's a executive order, it only applies to federal agencies. And because it only applies to federal agencies, like, the large AI companies all have an incentive to play ball because they want government contracts. There's a large, very lucrative contracts, but small to medium-sized businesses have no interest in that because they're never going to get that contract. That's what the top 7 are for. And it is now feasible through the amount of hardware we have, the hardware acceleration, or the level of hardware advancements we have that a small, medium-sized business can make their own custom model pre-trained for $500,000. Easy. Cheaper than that by just renting these servers by dollars. It basically costs dollars per hour to run the servers that it takes to pre-train a model to do a bespoke thing. And I think people really sort of underestimate what small to medium-sized companies or even people in their basement can weaponize AI with, and what those companies are going to be using those AIs to influence market stuff, business, social stuff, and the amount of mis and disinformation that can be produced by those people who want it, let alone nation states and nation state level resources like Russia and China and Iran and Saudi Arabia, who have all not necessarily played nice, creating their own mis and disinformation tools. And in particular, the advancement of multi-language, large language models, and the democratization of language in that regard, where translators aren't even really necessary because the large language models are so culturally competent that you can they don't sound fake. So one internet Russian troll bot farm, instead of having teams of people in a computer room, you literally just have them in front of a specialized large language model being like, create me 100,000 examples of this type of language, and then automatically spreading it out the internet. It's what Hamas has started to do, but like imagine a nation state with way more resources. So it's a great start, but there are wide gaping holes to the problem. And as every AI talk has said, look at all the upsides, but also look at the horrific downsides. Still remains.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I learned a lot just now. I always appreciate your expertise, Craig. I guess one specific question that I have, it sounds like then for anything to regulate those smaller companies that don't care about getting government contracts, would it then take Congress? And what's the likelihood that Congress is going to do anything on this?
Well, the executive order does mention the need for Congress to act, and then rightly so, the Biden administration has identified that there are bipartisan solutions that are available to do this. And I think what has continually convinced me over the last few weeks is the example of the Washington's disclaimer ads, which they just expanded to AI. They've long had some of the most stringent political advertisement disclaimer ads, disclaimer regulations, and where lying and misinformation, essentially, if you are caught, the person who makes it is liable. So really taking the consequences to the people who have the capacity to do that at a national level is part of that solution. But I, being somewhat of the radical that I am, think that as a society, we may want to think about, much like how we had nationalized telephones in the early stages and nationalized airplanes in the early stages, AI might need to be nationalized in order to make sure that the right incentives are there, because the wild, wild west is certainly upon us in this regard.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting. And I think as a person who I consider myself Gen Z, and I still can't really keep up with a lot of the advancements that are coming up with AI. And I was late to the game with ChatGPT. I am still shocked by deep fakes, realistic abilities sometimes. So I think that I agree. Nationalization, regulation, and taking this seriously before it gets out of hand is going to be extremely important. So like you said, Craig, I think it's good to see these first steps, but they can't be the only steps we take. So we need to keep paying attention and hopefully pressure the Biden administration, as well as maybe even our representatives and lawmakers, to continue to take action before bad things happen. Well, this was a very interesting, well-rounded show today, and I'm pretty happy. I think I would say this was good news all around for once, which doesn't often happen. Thank you so much, Craig and Linda, for being on. Thank you for watching. Make sure you follow, and subscribe wherever you can find us, and we will see you guys later this week. Bye.